Hot news today.
Commentary: a new Gaza ceasefire deal is on the table. Will this time be different? U.S. President Donald Trump has a renewed interest in securing a ceasefire, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has a rare political window to enter an agreement and get hostages home, says this professor. London, U.S. President Donald Trump says that Israel has agreed to terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. If that sounds familiar, it is. The idea of a 2-month truce has been discussed since the collapse of the last short-lived ceasefire in March. A similar proposal was floated in May, but Hamas viewed it as an enabling mechanism for Israel to continue the war after a brief pause, rather than reaching a permanent peace deal. As the devastation in Gaza worsens by the day, will this time be any different? The proposal, put forward by Qatari mediators, reportedly involves Hamas releasing 10 living hostages and the bodies of 18 deceased hostages over the 60-day period, in exchange for the release of a number of Palestinian prisoners. The remaining 22 hostages would be released if a long-term deal is reached. The 60-day ceasefire period would also involve negotiations for a permanent end to hostilities and a roadmap for post-war governance in Gaza. But the plan is similar to the 8-week, 3-phase ceasefire from January to March of this year, which collapsed after the first phase of hostage exchanges. Since then, peace talks have hit a recurrent impasse. This time might be different. For Hamas, a long-term ceasefire means the permanent end to the war and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. Israel, meanwhile, wants to see the complete removal of Hamas from power, the dismantling and disarming of its military wing, and the exile of remaining senior Hamas leaders. But despite the persistent challenges, there are several reasons that this attempt for a ceasefire might be different. First and foremost is the recent so-called 12-day war between Israel and Iran, which Israel has trumpeted as a major success for degrading Iran's nuclear capabilities, although the reality is more nuanced. The perceived win gives Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu political maneuverability to pursue a ceasefire over the objections of far-right hardliners in his coalition who have threatened to bring down the government in previous rounds. The Iran-Israel war, in which the U.S. controversially carried out strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, also revived Trump's interest in the Middle East. Trump entered office just as the phased Gaza ceasefire deal was being agreed. But Trump put little diplomatic pressure on Israel to engage in serious talks to get from the first phase of the agreement to phase 2, allowing the war to resume in March. Now, however, after assisting Israel militarily in Iran, Trump has significant leverage he can use with Netanyahu. He will have the chance to use it, if he chooses, when Netanyahu visits Washington next week. CNA.
Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.